blanketed a whole nation of South Africa. It is a phenomenon of which almost every adult South African is a victim. As far as storytelling of how it plays out in our communities is concerned, the problem lies with the perpetrators of crimes. And what gives rise to crime in South Africa is the social degeneracy exemplified by weak emphasis on authority, where people see no absolute need to conform to those good norms of keeping our communities safe and secure. I mean, the list corresponding to why we've got such unworkable crime levels in this country is not exhaustive, as there is a multitude of social forces or social variables complicating the quantification of what factors are the most influential, but I'll cover the ones that I think are important from a subjective standpoint. Police presence is sparse throughout the country. This is further compounded by the general perception that police response rates to community callouts are deplorable. Furthermore, the rates of solving any crime, including murder and rape, are equally appalling, thus making the national police ineffective in deterring crime before it takes place or completing successful prosecutions after the crime has taken place. A glaring example is when a criminal orchestrates a crime or any robbery, a factor that has a significant bearing on whether or not they end up committing the crime should be the consequences and not the gains. In the case of South Africa, criminals face low consequences and high gains from committing crimes. What would reverse this trend is increasing police presence, solving more cases of crime, and completing prosecutions. Morals are a big issue as well. Our education system is at fault again for this. In Japan and South Korea, for example, you will not hear of stories where a learner stabs another to death or exhibits any behavior that is obnoxious and disruptive to the academic program of their respective schools. In this country, however, our national schools are replete with such incidents. So that's parents failing their own children and teachers failing their learners. How so, you may ask? At a young age, the majority of time is spent in school or at home by the child. So we expect that teachings about morals and ethical behavior to come from parents and teachers. To solve crime, we need to tackle the highest form of crime, which is murder. Murder is a proxy for most violent crimes that we see happening in this country. If we solve murder, we're able to tackle all crimes associated with violence. Now, let's post the data on crime and murder in South Africa so that I can simplify my thesis. We need to establish questions of sanity and empiricism around murder in South Africa. What regions or provinces in South Africa record the most crimes? What police stations produce the most murders in the country? Or at what time periods are most murders committed, measured in days or hours? Lastly, is alcohol a factor as well? Surely these statistics are out in the open to answer these crucial questions. So why then are these murder hotspots not yet targeted with heavy police presence and crime prevention measures? So I believe that an immediate solution to murder and crime in general for this country is a responsibility that lies significantly in the hands of the national police. However, remedies that are not immediate and long-term are a societal responsibility that lies in the hands of the government, researchers, parents, and organizations that take an interest in the cause of public safety and security. I understand that you as a parent are bound by the circumstances where your financial situation is retarded and you're forced to live in this violent neighborhood because you're destitute of the economic means to locate away from such an environment. But it is not a bad judgment on many parents who live in such places as Umlazi, Wamashu, and Nyanga in Cape Town that they must take the blame for the continuance of high crime rates in these townships. Here is why I'm saying that. In these townships, there are insane amounts of violence and children are exposed to them daily. Not hard to expect the very same children to end up committing violence that these townships are known for when they grow older. In townships, childhood neglect and abuse are also rife, and such social variables are linked or correlated with violence. Juxtapose this scenario to children reared in loving homes of two biological parents in neighborhoods not plagued by violence. It is probable that they will socially inherit this culture of non-violence and law-abiding citizenry because violence is not their way of life when growing up. In most townships, Most family structures are disintegrated, where children are raised by extended family members. It is rare to find a township dominated by families that are intact and nuclear, with a biological mother and father raising their children. We do not emphasize the acculturation to the structure of the nuclear family in a manner that is done by other races or ethnicities. I despise the idea that you as my parent brings me to this earth, but you expect someone else to do your biological job of raising me. Because if there's someone that believes that I'm judging people that do this harshly, then maybe we need to go back to the definition of what being a father or mother is. The definition of far extends beyond conceiving or birthing the child. Most importantly, it means availing oneself to this lifelong responsibility or requirement of raising this child towards adulthood. So not committing yourself to this lifelong requirement as the bearer of the child automatically disqualifies you from the definition of motherhood or fatherhood. Unfortunately, most men in the townships are only child bearers, they are not parents, disqualified from the definition by their actions of neglecting, abusing, and abandoning their own children. As a result, it is an empirical fact that neglected children are more likely to commit crimes, which is where we are as a country. Also, we need to acknowledge the institutional role played by private security companies in South Africa. These companies employ far more people than SAP, and that is how massive their contribution to job creation and national safety is. Most homes in nice neighborhoods, such as Glenmore or Glenwood in Durban, are flagged with plaques demonstrating their subscriptions to these armed response companies. And they've got something to show for it as well, because they show up faster than the national police to crime scene callouts. The consequences of high crime rates that South Africa is known for are vast, both economically and socially. They pose a grave menace to the security of property rights and secure livelihoods. They also shrink our freedom of movement and expression. My ability to move to any place, township or suburb is constrained by time of the day. I can't walk to any place during night time because my safety is at risk during that period. But it shouldn't be like that. The basis of everything that works for everyone is being secure from any sort of crime or victimization. At present, there isn't a clear-cut separation between law enforcement and politics. This reality always comes to the surface when law enforcement has to prosecute the economic crimes of political overlords who happen to be well known across the country.